This is a game I really didn't expect to love as much as I did. It absolutely oozes charm, and the fact that you can create unique masterpieces by just wiggling your controller at the TV screen, knowing that your design is completely unique to anyone else's in the world, is super impressive. The somber and chilled mood for 50% of the game is bizarrely ditched for a pretty brutal action game later on, which makes me wonder what game they actually wanted to make, but in the end you're rewarded with a fantastic experience from start to finish.
Something to keep you warm and cozy, huh? You got it, Luna. Of course. What kind of... This is unbelievable. What are you? Just a splotch of paint?
Control is not the only game in this list that really pushes the PS4 to its limit. It's an action-adventure game where Twin Peaks meets the X-Files with a sense of style that really appealed to me. Unfortunately, I bought this on PS4 so I could chill on the sofa with it, and the frame rate and stuttering, although improved upon with numerous patches, did detract from what was a fantastic game. You're constantly given abilities as the game progresses, and you have to really master them to defeat certain bosses. If the game ran better and the side missions were a little more exciting, this would have been in my top 5 easily. I'm already looking forward to a next-gen sequel. Well, this game came out of nowhere, yet it took me 2 minutes to fall in love with it. Going in completely blind, you quickly realise you're playing the role of the AI on board this space station, and it's your job to help the distressed crew member you can see. I really loved how unique it was to play as a computer, and the visuals made it look scarily realistic. I'm not completely sold on the ending, but I was hooked enough to finish it in one sitting, and I know people in the stream were as intrigued as I was to finish it. I feel like I'm the only person who played this and not the original. When I was younger, I absolutely hated horror games, so avoided this like the plague. However, this was a chance to reclaim my pride and play what Jordan from the podcast dubbed as one of the best horror games of all time. And it didn't disappoint. I love Resident Evil 7, so with similar key puzzle door challenges and a small but fantastically designed map, I was sorted. Oh, and a shout out to the best map in video games and Mr. X for haunting my nightmares. Honestly, I'm already dreading a Resident Evil 3 remake, because I know he's in it. I had high hopes to finally get a Star Wars game that wasn't hot garbage, and Jedi Fallen Order didn't let me down. It's probably the only Star Wars game I've enjoyed since the Old Republic, and that went downhill quickly. Similarly to Control, the game is a little rough around the edges, but I hear it runs very well on PC, and there have been numerous patches out, so I won't hold it against them now. The levels are also superbly designed with various paths that you can open up after gaining more abilities, and the combat is a lot of fun, especially with parrying, heavy attacks, and special moves that you unlock with earned ability points. The story itself is pretty lackluster at first, but with such a rich world and memorable characters, especially at the end, I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the inevitable sequel. Another game that came completely out of the blue. In the era of a million battle royales desperate to take the crown from Fortnite, this is the standout one of 2019. I love that it included a hero-based character select, so if you were a pro at shooting, or you played better in support, the role was readily there for you. Also, the ability to revive a downed teammate and ping items or communicate to your teammates without using voice chat meant it was no surprise that this game became as popular as it still is now. It might have had a very lackluster battle pass, but the maps were always fascinating and the new heroes that got added have been well received, and the game overall is still a ton of fun to sink hours into.
Look, there's a puppy.
Hello, puppy. What a
Hands down the funniest game I've ever played. You play as Miss Fortune, a rather unlucky girl, as her name might suggest, who's resigned to the fact that bad stuff happens and she can just plod on. The narrator, who acts as a sort of mentor to her, often breaks the fourth wall and adds to the hilarity. It's a very, very sweet game with memorable quotes, jokes, and an ending that I was not ready for at all. It's also only about 3 hours long, so go and play it. It's even better with friends around.
Throw the ball at it.
What ball?
This ball.
Ah, that ball. Okay. Oh. Puppy.
Central City, Zone 36. All officers, ensuring civilian safety is your top priority.
This is easily my most played Switch game since Breath of the Wild. You play in an apocalyptic future as a cop who has the ability to control giant robots and get them to fight with you. Sounds weird, and it is, but the depth to the combat, the artistic style and music makes this one of the most memorable I've played this year. Using the legions, as they're known, to help outside of battle can be a little fiddly, especially later on in the game, but with them giving you scores on your missions and a plethora of cases to complete post-game, the replayability is huge. Also, boss battles and the arcade elements you saw in this clip are so cool. It's definitely a Platinum Games game. The remade base game was good. Heavensward expansion was excellent. Stormblood was great. And Shadowbringers is one of the best Final Fantasy stories I've ever played. Being blasted into a new world, you get the opportunity to start in a completely surreal place with no idea where you are or who anyone is, and no narrative way to get back. After over 800 hours playing Final Fantasy XIV, I finally finished the main story quests, mainly after playing this. That's how addicted I was, and desperate to find out what happened next. Each area you visit is uniquely stunning, and the new characters you meet are as memorable as they are diverse. The 4-man dungeons are also completely different from any of the many previous ones, and with a near-based raid and quality of life improvements being added weekly, what's not to love? They're even in the process of streamlining the base game so you can get to this incredible content even more quickly. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned how good the music and main antagonist are. I only played this game so I could tell Jordan how much I hated it, and in the process it became one of my favourite games I've ever played. It's certainly not for everyone, and even though I have it as my number 1, I don't think I'd be able to recommend it to all, or even most people who are watching this. It's a game where you travel from one place to another, delivering packages and avoiding enemies. It sounds dull, but playing it for myself, it felt anything but. One thing I noticed after finishing the game is that I remember almost every delivery I made. Each trip was an epic journey across harsh and stunning terrain that really makes you feel isolated and appreciate the world, especially before you connect the local areas up to the grid and then you can see the structures or objects left by other players. The game makes you analyse both your map and the terrain to work out the best route, and it was interesting chatting to other people, especially Jordan, about how differently we'd made our way to a certain place later on in the story. It also never felt repetitive, as you're constantly being given upgrades to make your deliveries easier, and as you set out on the epic journey with a phenomenal soundtrack kicking in, usually by Low Raw, you get into a rhythm that feels both cathartic and elevating. I've never felt so chilled and satisfied when playing a game. All of this, coupled with a fantastic set of characters and a gripping story that twists, turns and downright shocks on multiple occasions, makes Death Stranding my 2019 Game of the Year.